Aiken?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Tobias?
Here.
If we want to go down to each one of these items, I guess. So, should Chair start off?
Yeah.
Just hearing the total amount is just, I say just, but 3,800, looking at all these different, what we should try to cover for them and stuff like that.
Right. And I think we found out that it all depended on the state code or our code, the 5 years for personal property.
State.
So the ones that are under 5 years for personal property, we're going to end up having to keep until the 5 years, but the other ones we can.
So I guess my question is, like there's an entry here for rents that we do October, there's an invoice sent October 1st of 05, an invoice was sent for $500, and then on October 6th of 05, it looks like we received a payment for $508. So why are they both listed on there? Just to show.
Just because it was moved to that category in the chart of accounts. So
It's
like,
moved to what category? The unpaid?
James had created an account receivable under review category. So he had gone back and all these really old invoices, he moved them all to that category. So even if a payment came in after the fact, it would show in that list. Because it's still the same category.
Right, you're saying it has to do with old invoices, but this shows an October 1st, 05 invoice and an October 6th of 05 payment. So I'm curious why they got moved. I mean, that's only 5 days.
That's the logo simple.
Why would that be?
2005?
Yeah. Why is that in that long stretched review? I understand old invoices, but this looks like it was submitted on August 1st of 05 and paid on August 6th of 05. So why would it have ever been? Is it because of an $8 overpayment?
It could be, yes. If there's any kind of a balance on anything, whether it's over or under,
So he just
it's
has
in that
both-
category.
So both records are just here just because.
Right. Because there is some kind of either a debit or credit.
So we're going to write those off at the end of this year?
Yes, 13.
Okay. Is that CPA's tell us to do?
Well, I can understand writing off things that are owed us, but for example, this Lovelace and Colville, we owe them $8.75. Shouldn't we make an effort to pay that?
Right.
Unless they've dissolved and we don't know where they are or who they are anymore?
Or do you have like advertising for any? Yeah, but can't we send them an $8 check?
I think it has to go to a shipment.
It would only have to go to the shipment if we don't know who they are and where the
Correct.
money goes. But Lovelace and Colville is right there.
Upstairs, yeah.
Can't we just give them $8 and clean this off?
I think most
Can we ask that and see?
I mean, there's some things that are like $3 and $2. I mean, it's just been on there for so long.
Well, it's been there, yeah, they cost more to do it than it's worth. And if they haven't been asking for it, they may not even know about it. But I would think if we owe somebody, we ought to make a good faith effort to try to pay them. If they owe us, it's probably, in its small amount, it's probably not worth even attempting to collect after 7, 6, 5 days. Now, most of these probably are, they owe us, not we owe them, so that's probably a unique case.
Well, what I don't get is on the same page, if you go to 52907, roof for $50, and they paid $100, and it says overpaid dash refunded money. Why is it even on there? If we refunded the money and it's taken care of, why is it on this long drawn out sheet of things that are still hanging?
Well, I was saying, that's what I was saying. What's that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of things on there that are just mistakes that were entered in the wrong place and in the wrong. That's why a lot of the things on there shouldn't even be on there. Because back in the day, it was either entered in the wrong account, the wrong place, as a vendor, not as a crafter. You know, there are a lot of, like I said, errors, computer errors too on us. But.
Well, if they shouldn't be on here, can we just delete them?
We can't. We are not authorized to change that. In fact, we're password locked. Our auditors lock us after each 6:30 of each year. We can't make any alterations, and that's most of this is what that is. Like she said, is mistakes.
A lot of them,
or not all. A lot of them.
I think that Lovelace and went on 428. It looks like actually they underpaid us by $30. So now we had
Yeah.
8. Now we're down 22.
There's a lot of things like that. Yeah.
So you have to really.
What the auditors
After
say
all
here.
that, I guess it's easiest. Let's just
Wipe it clean.
wipe it at the end of the year.
Mary just said we would just need, it'd have to be a resolution of council for us to do that, and that's what the auditor will look at.
Is there a proper term or verbiage of the resolution that we need to?
Maybe include that in.
Can we get a verbiage of how she wants it to read so we
Sure.
read it properly?
Sure,
And then we can motion that on Monday night?
sure.
Let's see what kind of it's all mixed up there.
Yeah.
Looks like we finally got the resolution for the ordinance.
Yeah, this has been modified since this was published. I responded back to Lisa that we had changed it. We had made a change in the last part of the words where we were basically saying that the crossing the bounds of the property wasn't as important because if you had property owner permission from both property owners, you had to cross the bounds of the property. So she rewrote it and emailed it to Jen and myself on December 27th. And well, she emailed to the rest of the council. She emailed it to everybody. And so the final sentence should be, and Jen, you can include her new copy in the packet. But the last sentence part should be permission of the owner or legal possessor thereof when conducted with reasonable care to prevent a projectile from causing injury to any person or property versus projectile from crossing the bounds of the property. Just reasonable care to prevent a projectile from causing injury to person or property. And that's because, like we talked about at the last meeting, if I had permission to hunt on somebody's property and I start on my property and my arrow goes across somebody's property, I'm legal, as long as I'm on those two people's property. So that's corrected.
What about people who are target practice with those in their eyes?
Again, provided that you have that, and that's where this came from, is because especially in the townhouse community, and there are some areas in the townhouse communities where
side yards, say N units, 2 N unit side yards come together. Well, one townhouse community doesn't have a whole lot, one side yard doesn't have a whole lot of property. But if you combine that with the side yard of your neighbor, you all of a sudden have a little bit more property. And if you have permission from both landowners or possessors thereof legally, it should be fine for you to do it, providing you're taking reasonable care to prevent accidents. And that's what that last sentence changes, is instead of saying to prevent the projectile from crossing the property lines, it says prevent the projectile from causing injury to any person or property. And the reason is for if you have permission. There's kids that play airsoft. And if there's 2 driveways next to each other and they're playing airsoft and mom and dad in both houses are okay with it, why can't the kids play airsoft in their own 2 driveways? So that's why the change from crossing the bounds of the property from causing injury to any person or property. So, Jim, you had that. I'm sure you had that email from December 27th. If we can just put
that one?
Yeah. I believe you're good with that one. I'm good with that one.
Okay. And moving on, Villages of Haymarket Phase 2.
Do we know what the town's attorney said about the lighting standards evaluation?
No, I do not. All I know, what it was is that it wasn't necessarily the standards that I thought that they were setting. Is what it is they were asking for permission to submit the lighting plan at a future date rather than right now, because the layout of the houses will change as the owners decide what they want. And so they didn't say they didn't want to submit a lighting plan. They said that, can we please defer it until we know better what the actual layout of the houses will be. And that was the language that they wanted drafted in as to when they have to I thought it was when they had to submit the lighting plan.
And we did just do that with Alexander's Keep. Plan approval was 2008. They submitted the lighting plan this year.
That was revised.
A revised plan.
That was a revised plan.
So it needs language that is to be reviewed by the town attorney.
Yes.
She has signed off on everything she has received. She has one outstanding issue, which is the amendment to the HOA docs to include the new units. But she's working with the attorney for the applicant on that.
The commission also agreed that a requirement not be necessary. That finished right here.
I had two outstanding comments that I forwarded to the Planning Commission saying, okay, they've addressed all of their other comments, but I have these two issues that are outstanding. One, I hadn't seen a lighting plan. And the second one was that I had recommended that for the small portion of their property that is on Washington Street, it didn't make sense logically for them to try and construct it. It's a very short portion. Nothing would be developed on either side. So I'd come up with the idea that I said would have to be approved by Planning Commission and Town Council is, well, maybe you could escrow those improvements. Their attorney came and spoke at the meeting addressing both of these concerns. That's where it came up with, that's where I got that. It's not that they're not wanting to submit a lighting plan, but rather they wanted to delay the submittal. And the other one that he argued is that they technically, what we've always said is people that have frontage on Washington Street have to do the streetscape improvements, and technically they don't have frontage on Washington Street because it's the side of the house. In addition, he pointed out that a preliminary plan was approved without having any front-end improvements or mention of escrow. The Planning Commission agreed with him. And that's why they said, that's why they noted that they agreed the requirement to install or escrow streetscape improvements was a direct result of my outstanding comment. They disagreed with my comment and said it didn't have to be done, and then forwarded it to you.
Well, then who's going to do it?
The town would be responsible for doing it then when they do because there's still a phase that is not completed. Even with the project that we have ongoing, the property in front of the Harover property will not be completed. So when that portion is finished, that additional portion right there at the very end would have to be done as part of that project.
Here's
Yeah, but it's still their property that they're developing,
Right. Because the house...
regardless of whether or not the house faces the street or not. It's still their property
so
that
that
they're
one area
developing,
is
therefore they should be
right. So
bound
technically,
by the onuses of completing the
we
sidewalk.
got it. So.
Technically, they don't even own it.
Planning Commission disagreed.
No, they do own it.
I think VDOT does.
Okay, what it is the streetscape project in terms of the curb, gutter, sidewalk, and all that stuff ends right here.
We need to get more Jamie to see this too.
I'm fine, I can visualize it.
It ends right at the edge of the Haymarket Baptist Church.
Sure.
This is our property. This will be not developed with sidewalk and stuff, sidewalk, curb, and everything. They have this little portion right here. And we all agreed during the preliminary plan stage, it just didn't make sense to try and construct this little bit of frontage. It's not developed on this side. It's not developed on this side. The drainage, trying to get that worked out would be difficult. You would also then be tying these improvements on two sides, which makes it more difficult. So my grand idea, and I said that it had to be cleared through everybody, was, well, if you're not going to build it, escrow what that would be for the town to then tap into. And as I mentioned, their lawyer came and spoke to it and disagreed, saying, well, you mentioned that anybody with frontage on Washington Street has to do improvements. We don't technically have frontage.
It's a very weak argument because their property still fronts Washington Street, regardless of whether or not the building that they're building is going to front
Except
Washington
the
Street.
right-of-way portion. That's VDOT.
Well, no, technically town. They are actually even dedicating a little additional right-of-way.
Are they?
Yes. There's a little, that when we computed how wide this section had to be, they had to donate a couple extra feet.
I mean, according to this, that white area is not owned by them, right?
Correct.
And that's the quote-unquote frontage.
Correct.
So they're offset, their owned property is offset. So that gives them a little bit
That's
more
not owned by
Argument.
argument.
Oh, it's not?
Or at least from what
Who's
I'm
owned?
seeing.
Well, and to be honest with you, the part that they
Are they
dedicated
using
in
proper
addition
measurements off the
was
street for
just
their property
a
then?
small sliver behind it, like 3 feet. So yes, they would be doing improvements within the
Huh.
right-of-way.
Yeah,
To have to build a
interesting, huh?
frontage improvement.
So they'd do a sidewalk here that would
And
then
what's your
jet down
thoughts
to
on
there.
the pace when that part?
I'm sorry?
In other words, would we be consistent with our same thoughts about in front of pace, that would be doing?
Why is that dedicated? So
The
this is
vast
VDOT's too?
majority of this is not in the town,
Right, but that little.
and so that has never been considered. I know eventually Princeton is going to widen.
So who's going to build that, us?
But I don't know if they are going to put in.
This, all of this is going to be our responsibility, yeah. Well,
This isn't even part of the initial plan,
Other
is it?
side of the street.
it's not part of,
Little section.
it's Phase B.
Yeah.
We're not even
And
engineered
I'll
that.
be
Right,
honest
right.
with you, everybody's just.
So that's
because
what-
by the time
You
you
stop
drive the
right
street
here.
and
Right.
making curb returns, I don't even know how much would still be in there.
Interesting.
I just really don't know.
So if that's not their land, then we can't even get them an escrow.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because according to the map there,
Well, keep in mind that everybody sometimes has right-of-way in front of their property. It's what Holly's, going to tell you.
But is that their right of way, or is that, I mean, that's not a right of way, that's not their land.
It's actually
That's
not their
true.
land.
They are dedicating an additional maybe 3 feet of their property, 2 or 3 feet.
So you're right, it's not just
The
right-of-way, it's
vast
not their
majority
land.
of it is not within their existing property.
that probably answers
But I guess
that.
we can't do
I
anything.
think they have
That'd be a
a
pretty big
bigger
argument.
leg to stand on than I thought originally.
But I mean, and part of it is I wanted to make clear as well that they are not doing that. That's part of the reason for not just saying, okay, the comment goes away. Town council, planning commission, everybody should know. They're not doing frontage improvements there, other than they're going to bring a sidewalk down all the way to the existing street and put a handicap ramp there as a bus stop for the children.
Gotcha. They're going to put the bus stop on VDOT's land?
Yes, VDOT reviewed it, had them shifted a little bit, but VDOT's okay with it.
Is it going to be in the way of our sidewalk?
It will have to be eventually torn out, yes. When the
So why
ultimate,
can't we make them put it where it won't be torn up? Because if we tear it out, we're going to have to rebuild it.
because what happens is right now they have to tie in where the existing road comes in. Right now, your existing road comes in like this, okay? I'm drawing a sketch.
This going to be stick figures too?
Yes.
Cool.
I'm a horrible sketcher, okay? What it is that this is your existing road. They're going to have a sidewalk that comes down here and the ultimate location, okay? They are continuing it down, basically something like this, and then putting in a ramp. When the street is widened, the street will widen out like this.
What street?
Washington Street. This is Blight. This is Washington.
When did we decide we're widening Washington Street?
That is what the ultimate plan for the streetscape is, to have it as a widened section throughout this end of town.
How did I miss that?
That
in all
was
these
done
years?
in 1996.
That's probably why we missed it.
That was done in 1996.
Okay.
That's why you see the property line that you see right now, as far back as it is, was to allow for that widening.
Okay.
When we sat there and crunched the numbers, it turned out they needed to give a little bit more property, which is why I said they're giving like an additional 3 feet. So what's going to happen is when this is eventually widened, it's not funded right now or anything like that, the sidewalk will come down like this, circle around like this. So that means this portion has to be torn out. If they were to try and build it out here like this, it doesn't connect up anywhere.
Got it.
So they don't have frontage now, but they don't have sideage now, but they will have sideage when the new road goes in.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, in their plans, I had him take, because there's a house right here. And what we did is we said, okay, this is where, we had him check the elevation even, to say, when this is eventually widened all the way out, we put in the sidewalk, when we grade all this stuff out, will
We
it
don't want it
work
to
in
look like-
conjunction to the house?
Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't want another one of those
We
happening.
have them check that as well, to
Right.
make sure the elevations work with the grading that they're proposing on that house.
Well, can't we then, based on this argument then, can't we then have them escrow the money to build the sidewalk once we do Phase B of the streetscape?
That's what I was trying to get
Yeah,
them
why
to do.
can't we?
Yeah.
That's what my comment was to escrow the improvements that are required right here.
It seems like they're getting by not having to do it if they build the houses now versus wait 2 years and build the houses, and then they'd have to do it. So the motion in here is to either approve it as it is or forward it for further consideration. But I think the question for Lisa becomes, can we ask them to escrow it based on future improvements?
Based on the code.
I think we should ask.
I mean, the road may not be there today, but it's going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, before the road, it doesn't appear to make sense, but now knowing the road's going to change, it now makes more sense. Because they're already giving us more land because of the road coming. So they're already agreeing that the road's coming.
Right.
Therefore, that begs the question of the sidewalk improvements once the road's here.
When is our estimated time to pursue Plan B?
There is none. There's nothing on the books right now for the estimated time to do that.
So their argument is going to be, you want us to escrow the money for an indeterminate amount of time.
They had an argument, well, they didn't even know how to escrow it. And actually, if you go through what my original comments were, I even said escrow it, this many linear feet of a 5-foot brick sidewalk, so many light poles. I gave them how to escrow it.
Right.
You mean how to calculate the
How to
amount?
calculate how much to escrow, exactly. But then when the lawyer was speaking, he had mentioned he didn't even know how to escrow it, so I don't know if he'd seen my comment or not.
I mean, figuring out how much to escrow based on today's dollar amounts, you'd have to do it based on today's because you don't know when the project's going to start. But and then, well, you could do an escalator, or you could just say, okay, look, it's going to cost $100,000. If we did it tomorrow, it costs $100,000. Give us $100,000, and we'll make up the difference 3 years from now when we decide to build it.
I expect them to come to the town council meeting as well to argue their points, just like they came to the planning commission.
Okay.
The planning commission did not raise the same comments as you.
They agreed with the attorney?
Yes.
I don't have a problem with them delaying their lighting thing. That sort of makes
Fire
sense,
Planning Commission.
since it has to be done ultimately. But I'd like to try to get the sidewalk out of them.
I think I mentioned sidewalks, street lights, curb, pavement.
Well, right, the package deal.
Yeah. And based off of, without engineered plans, granted, so we just have to use some fixed
Some
numbers.
basic. How long did it take us to go from phase, whatever, first one to the second one that we're about to go now?
Okay, this is the second phase, actually, that we're about to go now. Due to some starts and stops within here in the town, it has taken extraordinarily long, about 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stops and starts and stops and starts and stops and starts. That is an unusually long.
Because I would imagine they'd want a time frame where they'd get the money back if we don't start. I don't know what
I
a reasonable
wouldn't
number would
think,
be.
I'm not a legal expert, but my thought is they escrow it. That means they're basically giving the money over to the town
Right.
for whenever the town is ready to do it in lieu
But what if
of
the
them
town
constructing.
never does it?
Then it just sits in whatever escrow account, building interest and whatever, but it's basically been dedicated over to the town.
Well, I would think that the town, once we finish to the church, I think the town would be, once we got all of our reimbursements back from the government and everything, I think we'd probably have a fire to lit to try to get it done. And I wouldn't have a problem saying,
prefer
give
to
us,
get it done.
well, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem saying, okay, give us the money, escrow it for 10 years, and if we haven't done it in 10 years, we'll give you your money back.
And I'm just.
With whatever the prevailing interest rate at the time,
I'll be honest with you, I'm jumping ahead here and to further on. There's a grant process open right now, and one of my recommendations was to also go after the grant money to do this portion, and there's a 3-year time limit on spending that money, so that would help propel the town to
Yeah.
try and get that work done. I mean, that's just something else to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, I would think we would probably need to get Lisa to approve it, but I don't see why we can't say, give us the $100,000 it's going to cost if we did it tomorrow, because eventually your property is going to have frontage on Washington Street. You may currently not have it because of the 3-foot right-of-way, but that 3-foot right-of-way is going away when we build the road and extend the road.
I agree.
So,
We should ask.
Well, when I say 3-foot wide, that's the additional amount of right-of-way that they're donating.
right, but they're saying they don't have frontage based on the fact that VDOT owns this sliver now. Well, VDOT only owns that sliver because they're eventually going to widen the road. Once they widen the road, then their property would be a front or abutting Washington Street. Therefore, again, they're calling it frontage, meaning the front of the house. Well, frontage doesn't mean anything. You're fronting Blight Drive and you're fronting Washington Street, no matter whether you're pointing east, west, north, or south.
Their lawyer's argument was by our definition and our ordinances of frontage, of which it means the frontage of the house versus the side of the house, where we talk about side yards, front yards, backyards, and frontage. I'm just trying to relate with the
Well, sure, but you could then turn around and argue that the Foster's 2 building, the Bloom building, doesn't have any frontage to Washington Street because those are all the back doors.
Yeah, and like I said, I made a comment, I'm not disagreeing.
I mean, those are all the back doors. And technically neither does the Verizon, well, it's not Verizon anymore, it's now a hair store, but the Winterham property doesn't have any frontage.
I'm just letting you know the arguments that
Yeah.
the lawyer made. And his final argument was the mention that during the preliminary plan stage, there was no mention of an escrow, and they showed the improvements as shown when the preliminary plan was approved. As I was reviewing it, though I'll be honest with you, it kind of occurred to me, I was like, we need to have some kind of documentation that they're not doing the frontage improvements or to escrow it or something, so that's why it came up at this stage. I'm just letting you know what his arguments are. My comments were passed forward to everybody to say, you know what, they are not agreeing to do it, I'm not agreeing to withdraw the comments, so they need to come to the planning commission and town council for resolution.
Right, okay.
Can we make sure that Lisa is apprised of their attorney's comments and arguments so that hopefully maybe she can rebut them on
Sure.
Monday?
Absolutely.
You know, because I feel semi-strongly that, you know, frontage is not frontage, meaning the front of a house. It means your property fronts. I mean, when you have a square piece of property, you have frontage to 4 roads or 4 other sections of property. Whether you decide to build your house facing one way or the other is your decision. But at the end of the day, 5 years from now, whenever we build that road, they're going to have to, if someone's going to have to build it, why should we have to pay for it? When, you know, and when you're talking about the preliminary approval, wasn't the preliminary approval from way back when they built the first section of houses?
No.
This is the preliminary on this new project.
This is preliminary on this new project.
And didn't we already give them,
Yeah, there's a lot of work going on that we did with them. They're actually putting landscaping on town-owned property to help try, and they're building a swale on the back of the town property where it grades towards the existing development, and people are complaining of flooding. And as part of the negotiation process during the preliminary plan, so there was a lot of negotiations about what would be done and what wouldn't be done. They said that they will construct a little ditch on town property to try and catch some of that water before it goes to those other properties, and then take it through the edge of their properties. So in other words,
Yeah.
we have the map.
so they're going to try to drain it and then bring it around to the side of their property?
Yeah, what it is, this is their property. This is right here. What it is they're going to build a little swale right here, and then bring it down here to their property and take it out to the street, and then it would come into their system and into their pond. The other concession that they made is they had originally asked for, this is in the preliminary plan stage, they originally were calling for 6 houses, they reduced it to 5. They also are putting landscaping on town property all along the backside here and the backside here. That was part of the negotiations that they worked out with everybody during the preliminary plan stage.
Yeah, but part of those negotiations were for the benefit of the people that already bought houses from them years ago.
Oh, absolutely. The town is
I
not
mean, they're not-
responsible for the
Yeah.
drainage problems of these people
Right.
out here.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, a lot of what they're doing is not necessarily to appease the town. It's
No,
to
absolutely.
appease the town residents who bought houses from them 5 years ago
Absolutely.
or 7 years ago.
Absolutely.
I think we
But that was
should,
the second argument, is that escrow was never mentioned during the
Right.
preliminary plan stage.
Well, that's why it was
There
preliminary.
those two.
That's why it was a preliminary plan stage, not a final plan stage. Because during your preliminaries is when you figure out all the problems.
I think we have consensus at least.
Yeah. And does our definition of road need to be changed at all, or massaged?
So, as I mentioned, and as the report says, Planning Commission agreed with our their attorney on both of the counts, both providing the lighting plan at a future date, and to not have to provide any escrow, or do the Washington Street improvements.
Good thing Planning Commission can't sign up to it.
And does the definition need to be changed in our wording there, or massaged, or any way to get more of our intent, or is this just?
Marshawn's attention.
Yeah.
I just looked one up and it said the land between the structure and the street.
Yeah, I mean,
Front of the structure or just the structure?
Well, there's a few definitions, so we'll bring
Defini-
Marshawn's, but there's other parts of the
Okay.
code we're changing.
They're picking the
from
definition they like the best.
street.
yeah, that happens a lot in our ordinances.
And I know I've seen things where it talks about corner lots, you're supposed to consider as having frontage on both.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you would think it would.
Right. So,
Right.
so I'm just wondering where the intent was.
Logically.
When you're buying a box of land somewhere, it says, 180 linear feet of road frontage. Well, it includes all the different parts of the land that front the
Well,
road.
and I'll be honest with you, that when they came and spoke at the planning commission, that was the first time even I had heard both of their arguments. They had never addressed them in their comments back to me. They just said no. Or they just didn't, they did not give the arguments that they gave at planning commission back to me even during the review stage. So, I mean, I hate being caught off guard.
It's probably because their attorney made the argument, not their engineer.
Exactly.
I'm sure that's why.
But I wanted to make everybody here well aware of what, at least at the planning commission, their lawyer was stating and the planning commission agreed with.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you do us a favor and just apprise Lisa of your thoughts on the escrow and then their arguments against having to do it at all? So that she can come maybe prepared with facts to support why it can be done or should be done or shouldn't be done if we're all thinking wrong?
Great. Okay.
This one's fun.
District looks like Bob will make a presentation.
If we want to, does everybody have any idea what's going on with this thing? Because I got a 30-minute dissertation on it today.
What is it?
So this certified local government thing. If we become a certified local government, apparently there's really no benefits to us, like real physically tangible benefits, but there's a lot of cost and ongoing maintenance.
Are you
And,
talking about the VSMP?
No.
no, because I don't know what that stands for. But the first step in order to even consider to become certifiable is that we would have to shrink our current historic district, which there had been numerous arguments against in the past 5 to 7 years about shrinking it and making it small. But all the maps that have a certified local government, if you look at all their towns and all the municipalities, they all have very small actual historic districts. So the first step would be to actually shrink that, which we would have to change some ordinances and modify. That would allow us to then modify some sign ordinances and a whole bunch of different things. So that would actually benefit us. But then following through on the certified local government thing, you've got to have a certain number of people on your ARB that are of certain, educated criteria or certified criteria. You've got to do certain things every year to keep up with it, and it just seems like I'm not sure why we're doing it other than to just say a certified local government after the town of Earth.
It does have some some pretty significant grant programs to it. That's all I've seen.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
what I have seen with it.
but it seems like there's a lot of work involved in trying to do it. But the first step would be shrinking the historical district. So Bob's biggest case is, does it make sense to do it? He's not even sure that we can become certifiable because we don't meet the qualifications as far as our boards.
Well, we don't now, but
It would be a,
Well, the problem is on our boards, we have a hard enough time getting people who, I'll use Bob's words, we have a hard enough time getting anybody to volunteer, let alone someone who has numerous certifications to volunteer. So that becomes an issue. If you have to have certain people to do it, A, do we have qualified residents to do it? And if not, B, are we willing to pay the cost for them to go get
that was
qualified?
the question, yeah.
I mean, Bob's got a whole thing about it, and he condensed his report down to like 13 or 14 pages from 30-some pages, or to 30 pages from 40 pages, something like that. But I'd like to hear what the real benefit to doing it, to chasing the tail is first, before we start looking at it, because it seems like...
I would think that we should break this into phases, like you just said. I mean, let's first decide what are the pros and cons, and is this worth even going to the next step?
Right.
Rather than spending an hour or something on going through all the ramifications when we're not sure if we want to go there yet.
Right. So, yeah, you're right. Phase 1 is find out what the benefit is. Phase 2 is to then figure out how small to make our historic district.
Yeah.
Because that's something we'd have to show.
I prefer a smaller presentation on more pros and cons and what does it do for us. And
I think Kat has that information. I know the subject was prompted by the ARB, and Kat presented it to the council, and briefly that night. Mm-hmm. This is the next step. The Planning Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, he just showed us a bunch of maps of the historic districts, because that's Bob's sticking point on this, the whole shrinking of the historic district, which will allow us to change our ordinances quite a bit.
Okay. Virginia Storm Management Program.
Okay, the Virginia Stormwater Management Program, that's the VSMP I just
Got it.
mentioned. What it is that Virginia has enacted legislation saying that all county cities and what are things called MS4 towns are required by law to become these VSMP authorities. What it is that when you've heard me mention stormwater management, BMP, or SWM, BMP, it's that aspect of the plans. It's how do you manage the runoff from the projects. And there's a lot of criteria. All of these authorities are going to be overseen by and reviewed by the DCR, Department of Conservation and Recreation. It would be, right now, we have some of the stuff, we have a quasi-program, we have some ordinances in place, I do reviews, we have stormwater management agreements. All of these things technically have been completely like voluntary. It's not overseen by anyone. If we goof something up, no big deal. Becoming an authority means that you would then be, like I said, you would have to do it according to the standard, have everything set and done in accordance with how DCR wants it. You'd be accountable to them. There are costs associated with setting it up, not just you would have to have the manpower to set it up originally in terms of writing the ordinances and policies and procedures, but it would also involve having more costs in terms of the inspections, both during construction and then ongoing. We would also be responsible for throughout the life cycle of enforcement, making sure these are working properly. Basically, right now the town has an erosion and sediment control program, or we're the erosion and sediment control authority. It would be the same thing, except for this is also for stormwater. Okay? Now, what I want to point out is that the town has an out. An MS4 town are the larger towns. The town of Haymarket is not an MS4 town because it's smaller. It's too small. So we are not mandated by Virginia law to do this. We have the option of saying, we want Prince William County to handle it for us. I'm not saying that's the route that we should go, but I think it should be considered because at least in talking to the people at DCR, the money that you get through permits does not cover the life cycle costs of what you are undertaking. So I want to make sure that the council is aware we have the option of whether or not we want to do this. There's a time limit imposed to have all this stuff set up. And what I wanted to point out is they are saying that these non-MS4 towns, people like us, should automatically apply for a 1-year extension because right now they are concentrating on people that have to do this. They don't even, the first time they really kind of talked to us about it was earlier in December. They have not been talking to us at all. And in order to apply for the 1-year extension, we have to have draft documentation into them by April 1st, 2013. And even if we apply for a 1-year extension, we can use that time to still decide, hey, we don't want to do this, it goes back to the county. It just sets you up to be able to do it if you want to, don't do it if you don't want to.
So there's no downside for an extension?
No, just the time, the preparation time to prepare the documents. Part of this tells you what has to be submitted. So it would just be the staff time to do that, to submit the draft information. And what I was looking for a directive from town council is to direct staff to prepare the documentation needed for the one-year extension, or decide not to be a VSMP authority at all. I think that's a little premature. I think people should think about it a little bit. But I want to make sure that's you guys recognize that's an option, that either we should go for this one-year extension, think about what we want to do, or just turn it down completely. Yes. Yes.
Pros and cons. I mean, cons are more expensive, but what's
Con is the most
I don't understand what the pro is.
Well, I want to mention another con. A lot of people I know in the town do not like the feeling that Prince William County is able to get their fingers in town business. And by allowing them to do it, you are allowing them to have say-so on something within the town, because in theory they are going to be responsible for reviewing enforcement and everything of the stormwater management program of the lands within the town. The pro of us doing it.
Can I interrupt? I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But they're responsible for enforcing it according to DCR's regulations and/or the town's ordinance and regulations.
Well,
more so DCR's, but
it's going to be the DCR Virginia regulations.
Right.
I don't think that if we have more strict they will end up establishing because part of the thing is having to have the ordinances. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't really talked to the DCR a whole lot about it, but whether or not, even if the county does it, do we have to change our ordinances to be in line with what the county has? Generally speaking, in terms of our ordinances with issues like this, they match the county.
Right.
So I don't know the answer if we would have to change our ordinances. Let's say we decide to go off on a lark and do something severely more restrictive than either Prince William County or DCR. I don't know if they're the authority that they would have to uphold something that we make that's stricter than theirs or the states, to be honest with you.
So I don't really see any pros other than a certain contingent of people who live in town who don't want Prince William County to be in their back pockets would be happy.
One of the pros is one of the things that the recent legislature is trying to do is to tie erosion and sediment control and the stormwater management programs together, because it's all earthwork, water, that kind of stuff. I did inquire. We are allowed to keep our E&S program separate from theirs, but ideally you tie them together so that all of the water is being reviewed, looked at, and enforced by the same people. But I don't see any reason. The DCR said they could be separate. So the pros to me are, kind of short.
I mean, it sounds like the steps for applying for the extension would answer one of the cons, which is how much would it cost us, do we think, and how much would it cost us to fund and staff and operate the plan,
Yep. One of the
which
things,
would be something that would be curious, because
one of the options that we have available is the same thing that we have for our erosion and sediment control program that we're now trying to back out of, where you're allowed to go to a third party and say, hey, can you do, let's say, we have the Soil and Water Conservation Board do review and inspection for our erosion and sediment control program. That's causing a lot of dismay in the town right now because they charge us even if no plan goes to them.
It's a flat fee or whatever.
So that's what I'm saying. That option is available to have someone else do certain aspects of it, and town people do have certain aspects of it. I still say, yes, in the long run, it's going to cost the town more to do that. But like I said, some people still want us to be our own autonomous people. So that's why.
Well, I'd rather be autonomous if it's a few dollars, but if it's thousands of dollars, I don't know, if it's a huge amount of money, then maybe not so much.
It could be thousands of dollars because right now, if we don't raise the fees for the erosion and sediment control better than we do, but it's a couple $1,000s to charge us even if no review comes in for the town. Because the town is not large enough to have full-time staff.
Yeah.
So you're either going to pay people to be trained, retrained, and whatnot, like me and Jim, or you're going to hire it out, in which you get socked with this fee. So it's a risk that you run. Either you're going to have these part-time on-call people, train them. And that's what I'm saying. I wanted you guys to know there is an out, but I don't know if you guys want to jump on the out or not. I don't know. Are you happy with how everything has been? I wasn't around when the town decided to be an erosion and sediment control authority. Are you happy with your responsibilities and duties and stuff like that? Or do you kind of regret getting into that, so you don't want to get into this now? And I did ask, if you become an authority, you can't back out, because that was one of the things I asked. I was like, what if you say you get authorized to be an authority, can you all of a sudden decide, no, I don't want to do, no, once you're an authority, that's it. You got to pay the costs to be boss, and you're stuck with it. You've got to find whatever, if there's financial shortfalls, you've got to find the money for it.
Right.
So it doesn't work in reverse.
The extension, how much do you think of time that will take?
I'd say a couple days worth of time. They have draft stormwater management ordinances that they're recommending people use. So even though we have ordinances, I would have to go to what the new ordinances that they're recommending are, make sure I don't have to edit that. Basically, I try to do the same thing as copy them verbatim. So really, it's the funding and staffing plan and just filling out the rest of the paperwork. So I just want to say a couple days.
Okay.
I know I'm throwing this on you at last minute, and I just want you to know there is an out in terms of being able to apply for the one-year extension versus rejecting it outright right now, so you have time to think. You do have one more month to think about it and talk about it
I
at
think the
February.
extension makes sense at the moment, because really the amount of the cost that we'll put into doing the extension is going to answer the question of how much is it going to cost if we actually do it.
Right.
And that's an important thing to know before you make a decision.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I got no problem doing the extension part, but I don't, I think as part of the application process, if someone could come up with more pros, because right now I don't see any.
yeah.
I see the one pro about people wanting us to be 100% standoffish from the county, but we're not, and nor will we ever probably be, so long as we're paying. And not only that, but I take the opposite mindset. I'm paying taxes to the county. I don't want to be totally independent because I'm still paying them.
Yeah. But
If I'm totally independent and I'm paying them taxes, what do I get to use? The landfill? Okay, great. I want to use their services for the fees that I'm paying.
And that's the thing, it's really the council's, I might have a personal opinion. I like to see better relations with the county, so we can use them as more resources, and if that type of issue would, I think, cause more integration with the county. But then again, I know there's people that don't want that.
Yeah, I would say that Monday we should consider just going ahead with the extension.
I would agree.
Doing the legwork necessary to get granted the extension, and also at that point we can, figure out what the answers to our questions are, and that gives us 12 months to think about
Exactly.
So could maybe you get with Jen with putting the verbiage so someone could just read the recommendation?
Well, it'd just be a directive, really. It would be a directive to the town engineer and staff to compile the necessary information to apply for an extension.
Okay. All right.
This next one's fun.
Yeah, appropriations.
Number one, do we still not have anything from Battlefield? Okay. And Lisa has told us that we don't have to give this money to the school, correct? I mean, to the school system.
Correct, that's the latest.
Okay, so that last piece of paper we can just throw away.
And she got that, I got that Wednesday or Thursday, and she got it right away.
Okay, so the last thing from the county we can just throw away.
From Dr. Watts. Yeah.
And I would say, I don't have, so long as Lisa believes that the improvements requested by each of the organizations satisfies the requirement of the proffer, i.e. a tangible improvement, then I don't have a problem with go ahead on Monday motioning to figure out how they can send us the invoice for their $20,244. Because each of the 5 schools will get $20,244. So they can go ahead and order whatever they want to do and send us the invoice for that $20,000, and we can pay it. I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted to make sure Lisa was cool with the fact that we didn't have to give it to the school authority as a whole. So then we can just recontact Battlefield. Maybe Battlefield can have something to us by Monday.
The PTO president's a resident, so I do need to refresh her and say, hey, Mike, this is our deadline, or not really deadline.
Not really a deadline, but we'd like to get it off our books.
Right.
Like to get something done with it. So this would be a reimbursement, or this actually would be paying the invoice?
No, we need to pay the invoice.
Okay, so
We cannot.
Oh, we can't pay the invoice?
No, because of the wording of the profit.
that's what I was.
Oh, okay. I was
We
under.
need to pay the PTO.
So we need to just cut them. Okay, but we can cut them a check after they spend the money. Because we still need to verify, from what I understand the proffer, we still need to verify that it goes to that tangible improvement.
Well, could-
So wouldn't they have to show us the invoice for that improvement, and then we pay them back for it?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Lisa that. I don't know the answer.
I don't want to just give them a check for $20,000.
Or could we make it part of the check, where you write on there that this improvement, or put some kind of caveat on the back of the check that this is for the improvement of.
Yeah, but at what point, I think that I'd rather see them pay or get a COD or something like that for the improvements that they're talking about having us pay for, present that to the town. Okay, we wanted to build this playground here, or we wanted the school board. We got the school board, it's all in order, here's the invoice from the manufacturer, we need $20,000. So we pay them $20,000, then they can show us the check to the school board manufacturer for $20,000. And then we've got those pieces of paper all stapled together in our file, so that we show the receipt of $101,000, and we show 5 different copies of $20,200 going out for the school board, for the library, for the iPads or the computers or whatever,
Right. Same thing we do with the fire funds.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, in our file, we have stapled documentation of, here's the money coming in, this is it going out, and this is what it went out for.
That's right.
But other than that, as long as we don't have to do anything with the county school system, the heck with them.
So we wouldn't actually pay their invoice, we would actually just have a copy of their invoice.
Right.
Because they might not have the money to pay it.
To front it.
Right, but they could get the invoice, and then we can, yeah.
Right, as long as we have the invoice showing what it was bought. That makes sense, yeah, great. Takes out a big thing. Of course, the police report, no questions about that. The museum report, of course, I'm taken back by Fran Marie's information there about the condition. Any other thoughts about that? Otherwise, treasurer's report?
Well, she's asking for, a building inspector to just come by and take a look at the facility, is that it?
It sounds like we need to have an insurance adjuster to actually come inside and look and see what the damage is and kind of go from there. Looks like this might be obviously an insurance claim as well as maybe some funding that we can get back, only if the insurance company probably wouldn't pay for it, I would assume.
I would think from here on out, maybe a recommendation or directive from council that the building official, be checking more of our vacant buildings on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Even our rented buildings.
Right.
To make sure the tenant, if there's something going on that we're not being told, because clearly we did not know what was happening over there.
Right. To the fact that we might not even have heat in it right now.
Right.
But that's not a vacant building per se, so,
It pretty
it
much
should
is.
just be, all town buildings probably should be looked at periodically.
Do we have any of the photographs?
No, she couldn't get them through.
Uh,
So then,
Well, she said a good number of which were previously submitted via email to the town. In the second page, first paragraph, it says, "Herein are illustrated photographs, a good number of which were previously submitted via email to the town. In addition to pictures of the damage, there are several showing the state of the office and objects as they were inherited."
yeah, this is the first I've ever heard of seeing.
Can we ask her to show us some photographic documentation of the damages?
I asked, and I'll ask again.
Tell our council that. She told us she's presenting. In her report, she says she's giving it to us.
I had an email saying she had to go to the hospital. That's why she couldn't get me on pictures.
Does she plan on being at the council meeting?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll check with her.
Okay.
Treasurer's report, Jen and Sherry will have completed by Monday.
Okay.
There's really nothing major going on the budgeting side of things as far as any kind of shocking revelations or anything like that right now. Other than, the $3,000 worth of write-offs. have been carried forward, and the fact that now we may have a significant sum of monies to expend on the museum.
Okay. And town engineer's report?
On the
We saw-
enhancement project, I thoroughly reviewed the bids and the engineer's estimate for errors. And due to the discrepancies, I've been coordinating with VDOT to see if we can re-advertise. Basically, if you want more detailed information, since we're talking about the engineer's estimate and everything, I can do it in closed session. But in speaking with the local VDOT people, they think that we do have the grounds to, but it has to go through VDOT in Richmond. So it might not be until later in January that we'll find out if VDOT even says if we're allowed to re-advertise.
If we re-advertise, will there be a change in what we're asking for?
No. We would see, I mean, the bids would come down because
Okay.
we didn't award it.
Okay. Best and final.
What it is that we have to take the lowest responsive bid. And like I said, if you want detailed information
Right.
on that compared to the, I can release what the bids were because that was public information. But if you want detailed information on how that compares to what the engineer's estimate was,
Right.
I need to do that in closed session.
Understood. Okay.
Oh, more, okay. Grant money. Oh, sorry, I just thought I saw. On December 4th, VDOT sent out notification that there is a grant available. The grant that is available is specifically for projects that have already received enhancement money and need additional money for completion, which is exactly what our project is. Both the phase that we're talking about and the phase in front of the Harover property. The due date for the grant is February 1st. So in actuality, we'll have to submit the grant application before the February council meeting. So this is the only council meeting that you'll know about it. I'm in the process of working out what the monies are. Both, we have to disclose, part of the application says you have to say how much money you have available. So we have to disclose this is how much money we have available. Then we have to, then what it is that with the grant money that we already have and the outstanding costs and using one of the bids, this is what our shortfall is. And I would list it both for the project that we have currently, and then there's also space to say, are there other phases that need to be completed? So I would also apply for the Harover as well to see if we can't get that money in this same application. Minimally trying to get what we need for this project, but ideally
Right.
cover that both with the pot of money that we have available now. So that would give us more money in the long run. So while you have the X's on there, is I'm still in the process of the number crunching. But I want to let you know that's in there. Now, if we do get money, the one thing I want to point out is that there's a time limitation on this grant. The grants that we have don't really have time limitations to this point. This one has to be done in 3 years. So if we get grant money for the Harover property, for the portion from the Harover property, we have to have that obligated within 3 years. Otherwise, we will lose it. So that gives us the onus not to have it last 12 years.
Obligated or spent? Because if we're talking about widening 55 down there, that's going to come into VDOT's territory, will it not? And can they do that in 3 years?
No, it would be something where, just like the enhancement project, where it's a locally administered project.
Okay.
So that's actually what this enhancement project going on right now is that VDOT has oversight on it because it's got federal money involved. So anything that's got federal money, grant money, VDOT has to be the overseers. But the town is actually, even with the portion that we're talking about right now, we are considered to be the people. We put out the RFP, we hired the engineer, we are the ones who are going to be in charge of construction. VDOT's not doing that. They're just providing oversight.
I understood that for the existing project,
Yeah.
but now we're talking about widening a road. Is that still
the
true?
The existing project is widening the road. It's doing a little bit of widening because we got to put on bike lane. It's going to be a total reconstruction of the road. The grade is being lowered. You're widening to add bike lanes.
Do you foresee any significant issues in trying to accomplish another phase in 3 years?
Well, I think if we have the time limit
Is it
on
doable?
I think that considering what it is, it's either going to be on our property or the property is already going to be donated, that we already have a right-of-way at Villages Haymarket. So I think this one is doable because we're not going to get hung up in a right-of-way stage like we did on this one.
Okay.
And I do believe it's doable, yes. Because the 12 years that this project has, like I said, had not only starts and stops, and then the right-of-way phase took so much longer because we had the properties that didn't want to settle.
Right.
that issue is going to go away because it's going to be town property or existing right of way. It's just a short portion. I think it's doable.
All right. I mean,
We already have a lot of the outfall drainage would be set up by the enhancement project that we have that goes through the church property that we shifted and
Right.
all of that stuff. We're just going to be able to tie into that. So that's what I'm saying. It's not going to have nearly the issues that this other phase had.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you are right. You are correct in that with the widening, that there is, because the typical section, how wide the road is going to be at the town line. Ultimately, Prince William County is talking about having 4 lanes coming up. So what it is where it's 2 lanes right here, out here, and up through the phase, it's going to have to widen out to 4 lanes at the county at the town line. So that has much more substantial widening going on in it. But there is some widening even in this little bit, just to even provide the bike lanes. And it is a total road reconstruction, if you weren't aware, that the phase that we've been talking about, we're lowering the grade of the road, so the pavement and everything is going to be completely ripped out.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And the last one, we're talking about with the pedestrian improvement, which most people know as the Connolly money. The shortlist committee has been given an evaluation matrix, and we are in the process of trying to get everybody together to try and compare the lists to determine who we want to interview and determine the parameters, what questions to ask, and what times and dates. It's been hard to do that for the holidays.
Okay.
But that is still ongoing.
Great. Closed session items?
Well, not a closed session item, but an item that we need to discuss is directing staff to advertise for our town manager position. In, wherever we should advertise, in Virginia town and
Municipal.
city monthly, all that stuff, and whatever, VML web boards, et cetera, et cetera. We also need to talk about where we stand on all the projects that were left on Gene's desk. Do we have an accounting of what they are and where we are with those? This is all, I guess, directed at you, David, since you've kind of taken it on your task list. We need to know where we stand with all the things that were on his plate and what's been left in limbo, and also where we stand with I know we just got an email the other day about a custom-made window for the post office building.
Right.
So where do we stand on continuing construction on that building? And then part of that is where do we stand on actual accounting of costs for both buildings?
Sounds like it's almost like we need a little workshop with that, of just going over each of the tasks and just seeing where we're going to go forward with it. I mean, is it something that can wait till another town manager? Is it something we have to identify and do right today? So we need to prioritize each one of those items. He sent me, of course, the list. I think I forwarded to you, everyone, right? Yes, I forwarded to you, everyone. That kind of gave a snapshot of what he was dealing with before his departure. So,
are there any emails or anything coming in that we need to act upon?
We've had them forwarded all to my email address, and I'm dealing with things that come in.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything like in the past week or two. I mean, because of the holidays, I'm sure it's been pretty quiet, but there hasn't been anything that needs directive or anything as far as I know.
I got an update from Mr. Dively this morning on where we stand. With all that, I could forward to everybody. But yeah, no, nothing that I haven't been able to handle at this point.
Where do you and Sherry stand on coming up with a proper accounting of the 2 projects?
We were just compiling what we had spent, and I think it's complete.
So is that available that we could maybe go
Yeah, that was
through
something that I'd asked Sherry to put together, was all the invoices for every project from January 1st till now versus all the checks, just to make sure that the checks and balances. But we've got to decide how we're going to go backtrack and figure out which projects had proper accountability for which invoices. That's something we still need to figure that out. And maybe Lisa can apprise us on that as far as whether or not she's been able to talk to the general contractor or not.
Right. Yeah, there was some concern about waiting till after the first year, and of course that's now happened, so.
Because we're going to have to, I mean, we can't just let this project, even though now we've been hit with a museum problem, we can't just let this project sit.
Right,
We need to get,
No, we need to finish it
we
and
need
get it rented.
to, we need to work on trying to finish it.
right. How are we with the leases, our proposals for,
I believe the last proposal from White Oak is in Lisa's hands.
okay,
I do not know the status update on that. What
I haven't
I
seen anything
did
yet.
this morning was this, I started preparing a kind of a marketing package for the old post office because I was asked for one and I don't think that we had one. So kind of just put together where I'm at right now. I just needed to confirm the rental rate that you all have on the side. If you guys can confirm with me, I have to be able to tell people.
Well, I thought I sent Rebecca a text message back on that. She didn't get back to you.
I did put down what was.
was it like $25 or something
Full
like that?
fish. but I
24 to
just-
26.
I just wanted confirmation on that.
Okay,
Well, after I sent her that text message, I was curious if we could figure out, have we ever figured out the carrying costs of each parcel of our rental space? Meaning, we know how much our mortgage is on this property. How much of that mortgage is attributable to the space occupied by the post office?
You're going to see all that now with the new accounting system.
the way it divides it up.
It divides it all up, even down to insurance.
When am I going to see it?
I mean, I've not prepared anything to give you current for like year to date, but what we're
Yes.
going forward.
So therefore, finishing my sentence, can we get a carrying cost of, this property cost us X number of dollars per year on the mortgage of whatever, $1 million or $800,000, whatever's outstanding on it. And of that, of this whatever 3.5 acre parcel, the Whole Fish House is, 2/10 of an acre, the post office is 2/10 of an acre, and therefore it cost us X. Because we can turn around and make sure that our rental rates are in line with our carrying costs for the property.
Sure.
Insurance-wise, mortgage-wise, whatever else falls into that categorization. But 24 to 26 is where we're at with the bulk of our properties, I believe. But we need to finalize that and probably figure out where we're going to get extra money from to pay for that.
We need to make sure we have a line item in here for discussing Chief Root's request for a new hire. He did get back to me before Christmas, but I haven't bothered him since then, that he would need about $750 for uniforms and stuff like that for a new person. All the expensive stuff is taken care of. Taser gun and all that, they reissue from the guy that left, but the actual uniform, rain jacket, stuff like that, he'd need $750 for that.
Could we just appropriate that over from like general reserve or something too?
Well, where does he stand in his own equipment budget right now?
Yeah.
I do not know.
I mean,
Again,
you and I talked about part of the, you can pull up a, you can have Sherry print off a report that shows where he stands in his budget line items. And, here's the thing, you can't never predict when someone else is going to find a better job opportunity or someone's going to resign. You can't predict that whatsoever. But then again, we're not an unlimited pot of money that says if he has turnover all this time, we got to keep coming up with all this money. He needs to look at his budget first and foremost before coming to council with his handout. And this is something that I've stressed to Jim over and over and over and over and over and over again. Before you come to council with your handout, evaluate your own pockets. See what you've got. See what you've got earmarked to spend already. Can you pay for it yourself? If not, then you come to council. Just like with these bulletproof vests. Just like, with anything he requests. Did you plan for this in your budget? Okay, obviously you can't plan for someone resigning, but, is there money there first before you come to council and say, I need it? Because I would dare say that there's probably money in his budget to pay for the bulk of it, based on historical data. Just my 2 cents there. As far as him hiring another person, I'd still like to see the final presentation on 24/7 police force. Because I know that's not been happening. And granted, there's been some circumstances, I totally get that. But even prior to that, it wasn't happening.
Oh, it wasn't because, well, according to the last conversation I had with him, the newest guy they just hired, once he got through all his in-house training here, which is approximately the end of January, early February, that's when they would be able to go to 24/7.
Okay.
And I believe that was in my email to council. Now another new guy, it's going to go beyond that by maybe 2 to 4 weeks. So it'll probably be delayed a month before we go 24/7. Because they have to go through before they can go out totally on their own, they have to go through this.
Right, field training.
Didn't we also want to talk about, like, for our part-time staff that's now more full-time, that we wanted to look together as some kind of either package or, this is Denise that looks like is now on a more full-time basis, so we need to look at the overall.
I think for now, the reason it's not, it would just be a decision, is that what you want to do, but financially, appropriation-wise, we're fine.
Because we're under
Right.
our salary budgets. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, she could work from now until July 1st and we'd still be under our budget, based on Gene's salary and what we're paying Denise.
Right.
So nothing would have to be done until we hired somebody else.
But we have a standard policy. If you work 40 hours, you're entitled to certain benefits, and I just would need an authorization to.
Change it.
Have we authorized her for 40, have we moved her up to 40 hours? Do we need her for 40 hours?
Yes. We did that, you remember, about
Yes.
2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, or
No, I remember seeing an email saying that she was going to help out and add some more hours to her time, but nowhere did it say she was going to go to full-time status.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't say that in any emails.
on 40 hours, I think that was, maybe there's a.
I mean, it just said that she was going to augment her time.
So we need to put together something.
Well, I mean, I need somebody here, assistant-wise, it could be 2 part-time, I guess, but yes, we would need 40 hours, so positions filled for the town manager. For sure.
Yep.
Well, cost-wise, you've still got the money in the budget to cover that, but
Correct.
where do we stand if we're going to go, if she's going to be 40 hours for now, where do we stand when we hire a new town manager, and a couple months after that person signs on, we don't need her for 40 hours?
I don't know.
I mean, then we're going to.
Sounds like we might still
It
need that.
was already discussed with Gene. We were already going to approach the council with this in January prior to even him leaving.
That they needed somebody. They
The
needed her.
office has reached that point, and we needed that full time.
I would beg to differ that the office probably has not reached that point, that there might have been a problem with the management of the office,
Sure.
not slapping anybody in the face standing here. I would like to evaluate it upon the finding of a new town manager, based on making any decisions now, because quite frankly, I don't think that's true. Just my 2 cents. I'm not here every day, but I'm here a lot, but just my 2 cents.
Well, we also, I mean, just the outages, of people sick, vacation, I mean, having enough.
I understand that. Again, there were directives given to the previous town manager about things like that, about 2 people on staff at all times, period. Hire a part-timer to make that happen. Make sure that that part-timer is flexible so that, you've got 2 people in-house at all times. And that was never truly followed as the directive was given. Again, I think that once we get a new manager in to evaluate all that, we need to then evaluate it at that point in time. I don't think that right now is the time to make that decision, because should you hire someone who perhaps could be more, I don't know, more able to control certain things and bend certain ways, or be more conscientious of time savings and schedulings, et cetera, you may not have that problem. I think that you get a new manager and you let them decide whether or not they need a full-time staff position or not. Because when we asked Gene this just back in July, he didn't believe that we needed a full-time staff member. Now, apparently he got overloaded because of the construction projects. Well, those are almost over. So if those are almost over and he was overloaded because of the construction projects, and the construction projects go bye-bye, do we really need a full-time person? So
Well, yeah, and
It
also
would
that was
be-
before we don't have the treasurer anymore, or
Right,
CFO,
I understand.
which is a huge impact.
But again, a lot of what bothered our town manager apparently was as a lot of council, some of the council previously had suggested, being a contractor, being the director of these projects, were going to take an awful lot of time. And therefore, something was going to get dropped, or something was not going to get scheduled or completed properly. And that's apparent that has happened. Now that the projects are 2/3 of the way over, if not even 3/4 of the way over, is scheduling and time scheduling and all that still as big of a problem? My answer is going to be no, it's probably not. I think that, proper time maintenance and everything would be, granted, we're in a crunch right now, which is why I don't have a problem with Denise doing 40 hours and getting benefits right now, but I don't think we need to present it as going forward, you're going to be a 40-hour full-time employee, because I don't think council needs to make that decision yet. I think that needs to be a directive or a request from whoever we get in here in the next coming months as town manager.
Reevaluate.
Right.
Anything else? All good? Great. Thank you all for coming out.
Just leave these here.
Well, you can take them home if you do. You'll get a new packet on Monday.